Exactly 14 years ago, in August of 2000, Palm released their Palm VIIX. This is a popular pocket PDA device for you to help organize your address books, your contacts list, and run a few basic applications and games here and there. What made this unit so popular was the fact that it had a built-in wireless antenna on the side, which was a differentiating factor at the time, considering most competitors did not offer a wireless functionality. This allowed the device to actually browse the web and access some select websites such as Amazon, eBay, and the such for a monthly subscription cost, something that the original Palm VII did not offer. The newer upgraded model that we have here actually originally retailed for a price of $200, and in order to access the aforementioned wireless capabilities, which were technically over edge speeds for browsing the web, you have to pay Palm a monthly fee of around $15, which again, as you can imagine, is quite expensive. What was even more ridiculous, even at the time, was that Palm actually did not build in a full web browser onto the unit. Instead, you only had access to some select web pages, again, such as Amazon, eBay, Google search, and some very limited functionalities here and there. Also, you had a limited amount of basically web protocols that you could actually access before your device, kind of restricted you from browsing the web any longer. Still, the device was pretty popular due to that interesting wireless capsule that we mentioned on the side of the unit. And again, the main selling point of this particular Pocket PDA device was that it had 8 megabytes of memory rather than 2 megabytes, which was, again, 4 times larger in terms of memory for installing applications, running programs, and the such. The device has a screen that measures roughly 3.5 inches in terms of the touch sensitivity. The screen, of course, is actually monochrome, so you have to there aren't any colors, so whenever you're browsing the web or looking at images and photos, it is going to be in black and white. On the plus side, it's going to be easier for reading text and ebook reading and such other programs. And also, the fact that it has a resistive sensor isn't that bad, because you do have a fully built-in stylus onto the side of the unit for you to use the graffiti area down here to use handwriting recognition for typing in messages and the such. The device ran on Palm OS 3.5, which at the time was the newest release. As you can see here, the device is not too much change in terms of from previous generations and models of Palm OS devices, and instead you still have access to all your different applications, your address books, your contacts, your graffiti. Nothing has really changed except for the inclusion of some wireless functionality. Taking a look at the design, with the wireless functionality built on board, the VIIX is quite a bit more hefty than your traditional Palm PDA. In fact, there's a large bezel around the screen, which is, again, more prominent than even older versions of Palm devices. The bottom device features a up and down scroll key. You also have some hotkeys to take you to the calendar, the address book, to a checklist, and also to a memo pad. Touch-sensitive keys take you home into different settings, different tasks. You also have a drop-down menu key, in addition to a calculator key, to a search key, and these little buttons down here take up a QWERTY keyboard when you're in a function, and again, this is the graffiti area for writing handwriting recognition. The left-hand side of the device doesn't offer any features. Pressing and holding the power on and off switch actually also dubs as the backlight key, so the device does have a backlight that you can see in darker environments. It works, but it drains the battery incredibly fast, so in case, if you are in darker situations, you can use it, but we wouldn't recommend it. Speaking of, the battery is housed on the back of the unit, and it takes 2 AAA batteries, which might seem pretty good on paper, but battery life was pretty mediocre back then, and you can only last about, I would say, a few weeks before I had to recharge it, which was definitely not as good as some rechargeable batteries in today's standards. Over here, we have a cradle serial port for you to sync information with your PC. On the right-hand side of the unit, we have access to a volume rocker, but it's just for the mono speaker. There isn't a full built-on stereo speaker onto this unit. The aforementioned stylus port is over here. You also have the extendable antenna, which is quite interesting. The antenna itself is not too flimsy either. It extends to a nice size overall, and it's a little bit plasticky, but it receives the signal quite well. Even when we were in areas where the actual data reception for our cell phone was weak, the Palm VIIX was still able to get a pretty strong reception and be able to browse the web at relatively okay, acceptable speeds. The top also features an infrared port for you to beam information into other Palm devices, so it's pretty similar in today's standards to NFC technology, but of course it's a lot more lower caliber and lower tech. But again, you can share basic information like address books, contacts, and names with other compatible devices by putting them together. So very similar in concept to some stuff that we have today. Taking a look at the device, again, as far as the screen is concerned, is actually okay, but it's very transflective, very glossy, and a fingerprint magnet, so it's difficult to see under darker environments, unfortunately. What is really unique about this particular product, again, is those web features. You see some applications here that you will never see on any other Palm device, either nascently released or back in the early days. And for example, you have access to stuff like ABC News on here, which is again pretty unique. You can see the U.S. politics, world business, finance, and all these different stuff. Again, this is a pretty mobile version of the website, so you're not going to have access to the full HTML, Java, all the fancy scripts that you might run on a PC. And of course, the loading speeds are going to be considerably slower than you might expect over 4G today. But still, it's pretty handy for basic headlines, basic sport information, basic news information that you want to have a peek on, perhaps in a bus, in a train. Even when your cell phone reception is spotty, this device will still get the job done. So it's definitely for at times when you don't have a Wi-Fi reception or something as strong. And again, back then it was pretty revolutionary. We had an activation code over here. You can have access to Amazon, which is pretty interesting. It's a very mobile version of Amazon. Taking a look at how the keyboard function, again, we can tap the ABC key down here for you to bring up the virtual QWERTY keyboard. Speaking of, again, Palm OS is not very optimized for finger friendliness because at the time, Windows Mobile was also not very finger friendly. So typing in messages was quite a tedious process, but the stylus itself is quite easy to use. It's made out of metal, so it definitely feels pretty good in the hand, and it's pretty comfortable to use in conjunction with the product. So, if we want to search something like done, we can then search it up and then go look at toys, electronics, software, and the such. And then, of course, you can also log into your account and purchase stuff as you usually would. Again, it probably wouldn't be the best idea to use eBay on this product because the web speeds are much slower than over Wi-Fi traditionally. So if you hit on like a bid button, it's going to take it maybe 5 or 10 seconds to actually place your bid. And so if you want to place your bid at the last second, that might get into some issues here and there. There's some Ask services that replaces Google services. There is a barnesandnoble.com, which is pretty interesting because you do have access to online ebooks, music, and the such on this product. Again, so in a literal sense, the Palm VIIX was the first generation kind of Nook ebook reader because it has that ebook-like screen and also has access to Barnes & Noble ebooks. So again, pretty special in that department. We have a brand finder, which is kind of just allowing you to search up different brands, fashions, and getting you situated over the web. Again, you can search up directions. There's a CBS News, a Fidelity for your different needs. There's a movie phone, so you can search up different showtimes at cinemas, finding movie theaters near you, and the such. There's no GPS, no Bluetooth, of course, but just very basic services. There's the Ask services. Again, it's a little bit slow to load up. Some other features include a MapQuest. Again, there are no Google services, just basic services that were released back then. You have traffic reports and driving directions. And again, you can see the copyright is still in the year 2000, so it's, again, 14 years out of date. There's the Travel SOS, some basic weather information, and USA Today, so that you could search up some basic news and headlines. And so you do have a good selection of apps, and you could even extensively add to these by going to Palm and then on a PC, download more websites that you want to put onto your device. But again, they are pretty limited, and it's not going to be as comfortable as a desktop version. Of course, you also have access to all your traditional kind of Palm applications like HotSync, Preferences, Security, and now we can see our more applications including address books. We have a date book, diagnostics for the actual reception. We can take a look at how much reception we have. Again, at $15 per month, it's quite expensive, and even though connection is pretty good, again, it's a little bit not really worth it if you do already have a cell phone service, especially in today's standards. But back then, I guess it was one of the better options that you had. There's an IM Messenger, there's a Palm to-do list, there's some basic travel information, a memo pad that you could draw on, add different notes, doodle, and the such. And then there's a basic calculator you can see here. It offers a pretty touch-friendly interface that you can tap away with even with your fingers, which we do appreciate. And essentially that's all. Again, you can add more games and the such, after you download them from Palm OS on their website. There are a lot of third-party applications. There isn't a built-in app store, of course, but you have to download them yourselves. So again, this is a pretty interesting device as far as performance is considered. It's unique because of that web functionality that we don't really see in any other Palm device. But again, 14 years ago, when devices didn't have Wi-Fi, they didn't really have any other wireless option, the Palm VIIX was truly a revolutionary product, and at $200, it wasn't the most expensive thing either back then. So an interesting look back at the retro Palm VIIX, a Palm PDA running on version 3.5 with all your traditional tasks, except it also has a built-in wireless antenna for browsing basic websites and web content. Thanks for watching this retro review here at osandvtxreviews.com and also our brother site at OS Tech News.